So back behind me, I got my trail bike and I got my Enduro bike, which are two of the most popular mountain bikes you can buy these days. Now let's be honest, a trail bike like this with 135 mils of rear travel and a 150 suspension fork is probably all we really need. But Enduro bikes like this Polygon Collosus N9 climb so good these days that it's like, why not have 170 millimeters of rear and front suspension travel, right? But which one of these bikes is right for you? And if you're trying to make a decision between the two, which one should you buy? And let me tell you a little secret that the bike industry doesn't want you to know. You don't need both. So in order to really put these two bikes to the test and figure out which one rides best for the type of riding you do, I've designed a specific test that's going to involve two major laps up and down this mountain right here. The first test lap we're going to do is going to be geared a little bit more towards what you'd ride on your normal Enduro bike. The second test lap is going to be geared a little bit more towards the type of ride you would do on a trail bike. So for that first lap, we're going to hit an uphill climb that's going to be mostly like Forest Service roads, kind of finding that quickest way to the top. And then when we get to the top, we're going to be bombing down a nasty black diamond trail called Nighthawk, steep, technical descents, and some of the craziest rock gardens you will find on this mountain. And that downhill black diamond descent is definitely going to push the trail bike to its limits. But then from there, we're going to head over to the second test lap of the day, over at the other trailhead, where we're going to do a ride that I would typically take my trail bike on. This climb over here is a lot steeper, a lot longer. You got those steep single track sections, those kind of switchbacks that's really going to kind of push this Enduro bike's climbing ability to the limits. You've even got some technical black diamond climb challenges where we're really going to be able to see the difference between how well this Enduro bike climbs compared to the trail bike. And at the top of that climb, we're going to drop into a black diamond jump trail where we're going to test how each one of these bikes performs airborne. After the airborne test, we'll continue down onto a trail called Speed King, where we're going to do a timed downhill run to really see how much speed each one of these bikes can carry throughout corners, berms. This trail kind of twists and turns the whole way down the mountain. And by the end of both of those test laps, we should get a really good feel for how each one of these bikes performs everywhere on the mountain, and ultimately help you decide which one of these bikes is best for you. Now I'll be keeping track of the entire course on my Strava app, plus I got a stopwatch right here that I'll be using to time the up and downhill sections, so we'll definitely have some stats to talk about. I'll be recording everything on my GoPro chesty right here, but before we go ahead and start riding, let's take a closer look at each one of these bikes we're about to ride. The trail bike for today's test ride is a Polygon Siskiu T9. This thing has 135 mils of rear suspension travel, driven by a Fox Float X rear shock and this single pivot suspension platform. And on this bike, I have a 150 millimeter Fox 36 front fork. It's got 29-inch wheels front and rear, modern geometry with a 65-degree head tube angle. It's got a 77-degree, like nice steep seat tube angle. Although I did increase that fork up to that 150, so it probably slackened out that head tube angle and that seat tube angle by, I don't know, like half a degree or something. This bike has an overall 500 millimeter reach for this size extra large. It's got 430 millimeter chain stays and an overall 1264 millimeter wheelbase. And this bike comes in at a total weight of just over 33 pounds, the way I have this thing upgraded and configured right now. And the Enduro bike that we're comparing that to is a Polygon Collosus N9. This also has 29-inch wheels front and back. I'm even running the same exact tires on both bikes with a Pirelli Scorpion rear specific tire and a big beefy Pro Wall tire up front, which really levels the playing field, having the same tires on both bikes. They should have the same exact rolling speed, so if the Enduro bike is climbing slower, it's not because I got slower rolling tires on it. Now the Enduro bike's got a beefy Fox X2 rear shock, mounted to Polygon's patented IFS 6-bar linkage suspension, offering 170 millimeters of rear wheel travel. For the fork, it's got a big beefy Fox 38 fork with 170 millimeters of travel. This bike is also a size extra large. For the geometry on this bike, you got a slacker 63.5 degree head tube angle. However, it has the same seat tube angle with a nice 77 degree effective seat tube angle, and it's also got the same exact reach as the trail bike with a 500 millimeter reach. Only it's got slightly longer chain stays on this bike with 435 millimeter chain stays, which gives this bike a longer wheelbase at about 1289 millimeters long. And this bike weighs about 4 pounds more than the trail bike, coming in at a total combined weight of just over 37 pounds. So apparently I haven't weighed it since I threw all the upgrades on this bike. This thing is down to 36 pounds, 14 ounces, or 16.61 kilograms for you people that don't weigh in American pounds. So there's definitely some differences between these two bikes right here, but how much of a difference does it actually make out on the trail for average riders like you and like me? It's time to take these bikes on a ride and find out. We're going to start with the Enduro bike since the first ride is geared a little bit more towards that. And then we're going to move over to the trail bike and do those back-to-back laps. All right, let's start the Strava time. Then we're going to get right over here to this section before we start the stopwatch to time these climbs. So, starting right here at this tree, both times, and stopwatch, start. Got the stopwatch going right there. So like I said, this first climb right here is more of what I would do on a typical Enduro bike, just kind of on these gravel fire roads like this. Now, kind of what sparked this video and why I decided to do this test is because, like, I own both bikes and I've kind of gotten to the point to where I'm always questioning which bike I should take out on the ride for the day. And I've never actually tested both bikes like back to back like this, like on the same trail, on the same day, both of them back to back. And if there's anything that I've learned during my time making these videos, it's that when you test things back to back, like one right after the other, that's when you really feel the difference. So let's go ahead, get this climb going, up this fire road, get to the top, and then I'll walk you through that gnarly downhill trail we're gonna be riding. All right, not even halfway up this fire road climb, and in spots like this where the road gets a little bit steeper, I'm in that very top, you know, eagle gear, like some people call it with the SRAM drivetrains, but that biggest gear on the rear cassette back there. Man, whew, I'm already struggling a little bit. This is gonna be a freaking long day. Woo! All right, coming up on the halfway mark of the climb, I'm at 12 minutes and 10 seconds on the Enduro bike. Whew, man. Also, forgot to mention, I'm not flipping any of like the firm switches on the suspension. So keeping the suspension fully open, really trying to get a feel for how each bike pedals, how the suspension handles that pedal bob, anti-squat, you know, all that bullshit that they talk about when they design these bikes for scenarios like this. Coming up towards the top, and we'll stop it right here at this road. Boom, stop the watch. Got 37 minutes, a little over 2 seconds. Whew. So that was the easiest climb of the day. Whew, that's gonna be a lot getting this up the hardest climb of the day. This Enduro bike pedal is good, but as you can see, I was definitely up in that highest like eagle gear right there, if you want to call it, that biggest gear on the cassette right there for the majority of that ride. And now it's time to head down this trail. We got Nighthawk, Black Diamond. Experts only trail is definitely what this enduro bike was designed for. So quick little break, rehydrate for a second, start smashing back downhill, show you what this enduro bike's all about. Then we'll grab the trail bike, do it all over again. All right, resetting the stopwatch. I'm gonna do my best to keep this accurate, try and start that at the same exact spot on the way downhill to track the time downhill on both bikes. Drop the post down. I'm gonna start right here, front wheel at this rock right here. Get that GoPro up the right angle and stopwatch, start. All right, so you're gonna see real quick when we drop it on this trail, it is no joke from the get-go, and GoPro's not even gonna do it justice. You gotta come here in person to see just how gnarly this is. All right, a little bit of a squeaky SRAM brakes. All right, that down. This is one of my favorite trails to ride. This is where I'll probably take you riding if you ever come up here to ride with me. This is definitely a must ride trail here at my local mountain, Spence Mountain. That down. Got to keep your eyes up, out in front of you, because these rocks come at you pretty quick. You'll also see this trail featured on Brian's BKXC channel and probably a lot more famous YouTubers coming up in the future, because this mountain is really starting to gain some popularity. But right now it's time to stop talking, start focusing on these gnarly rock sections in front of me and get this run going as fast as I can. Man, I wish GoPro would capture just how crazy this gets. Shit. All right, coming down to the bottom right here. Let's get this and find no corner. Stop the watch. Boom. 8 minutes and a little over 1 second right there. Whew. Whew. All right, back down to swap out bikes. Get the trail bike. Having to add some air to the rear wheel on this trail bike. Just realized that it's leaking a little bit of air right there. You can see that sealant coming out. So hopefully this tire holds up and lets me get through this test today. Still got some sealant coming out, so it should seal. All right, coming up to our starting point, going to that stopwatch, reset that time. Okay, ready, and let's go.
A few minutes later.
This fucking watch didn't start when I hit it, you guys. Fuck. It's like, do I go freaking all the way back down that fire road and start over? Shit. All right, back down here at the start. That cool breeze on the way down actually felt kind of good. We're gonna reset the clock, reset it. We're gonna take a split second to actually make sure that it starts. There you go, clock is started. Just remind me at the top to take off that extra second it took me there. I want to get some accurate stats, because when you're riding so many times, you're going off what you feel. Like you'll jump on a buddy's enduro bike and it'll be like, no, my bike pedals amazing uphill. And you ride it after riding your trail bike and you're like, okay, I'll take the trail bike back for the climb.
You notice like an instant difference too.
Yeah. But he doesn't know that, because there's so much bias that goes into riding, which is why it's important to have stats, like have an actual clock that you're timing yourself to be able to look at some real numbers and not just go off what you're feeling. So here we go, climbing up the fire road again. I'll see you guys halfway up. We'll check in at the time and then we'll talk again at the top. Coming up on what we called the halfway mark is, I'm at 11 minutes and 51 seconds on the trail bike. I don't remember what I was at on the enduro bike. 12 minutes and 10 seconds on the enduro bike. You know, it doesn't feel like it climbs that much more efficient on the trail bike. It doesn't feel like I'm moving that much faster. But looking back at my cassette every once in a while, I've yet to hit that biggest gear with the chain. So, you know, it's definitely pedaling up this mountain easier. To the top of the climb, right here, hit the road, stop the watch. 34 minutes, 47 seconds. 3 minutes faster. I guess 3 minutes is quite a bit of a difference. You got to keep in mind also that I'm freaking exhausted right now, because I already climbed 1,000 feet before in the enduro bike. Now this is my second time climbing 1,000 feet. So if I was fresh on this trail bike, you know, I still made it up 3 minutes faster, but if I was fresh on this trail bike, I probably, who knows, I would have made it up even quicker than that for sure. I never had to switch into that highest gear right there. Kept the chain pretty much down in that 11th gear the whole way. So it was definitely easier to pedal on the way uphill with that 135 millimeters of rear suspension. I never flipped the firm switch, never flipped that up right there. You can tell it was, you know, moving at least just like a little bit with that O-ring right there, but felt very minimal bob, pretty efficient pedaler on the way uphill. But that's what you would expect from a trail bike, right? So let's go ahead and get this bike pointed downhill, because that's where things are really going to get interesting on this more enduro style gnarly downhill trail. And then when we get to the bottom, I'll talk about how these two bikes performed on these back-to-back rides. Starting at that same rock, that watch out, timer started, let's go. Double check that it actually started. Looks like it did. All right, here goes the moment of truth. Oh shit. Starting this run off a little sketchier on the trail bike. I think that's the biggest difference, like right off the bat right there, is that on this trail bike, you just have a little bit less of that like, oh shit, suspension travel. On the trail bike, you gotta be careful where you're pointing this thing a little bit more. You gotta be careful in your line choice, to where on the enduro bike, you could pretty much just send it without care, because you know you got all that extra 170 millimeters of suspension travel to soak up your bad line choices. Woo! All right, eyes out in front, stay focused. What do you guys think? Leave a comment below. Do you think I'm actually gonna be able to finish this trail faster on this trail bike? It is a little bit snappier around some of these corners in these sections. Ooh, but when you hit those rocks like that, damn, that's when it just brings you down to a freaking halt on the trail bike. Shoot. All right, let's get back on it. Come on. Hopefully that rear tire is holding air. Ooh. Oh man. Woo. And boom. 8 minutes. Whew. Oh, I wouldn't stop quite early enough. That was 8 minutes and 6 seconds. Took me a little bit longer to stop that watch. Woo! 8 minutes, 6 seconds. Man, that's like, trail bike was only like 5 seconds slower than the enduro bike on the way downhill. And I was freaking exhausted. I mean, I could feel the difference for sure that I was, you know, running out of suspension travel when I was smashing into those rockier sections. My hands are definitely feeling fatigued, but that's also, you know, after 4,000 feet towards the bottom, if you count all the miles that I've climbed and descended. So hands are gonna get tired regardless, but I thought the enduro bike would be quite a bit faster on the way downhill. And that kind of like leads me to like why I made this video. You see, I see all these videos from professional YouTube channels like the Global Mountain Bike Network or Lone Wolf with these pro riders. But those guys ride at completely different levels and they ride completely different trails than most of the average riders like you and like me. On my local trails, kind of just makes me wonder if you even need an enduro bike anymore these days. I mean, a trail bike like this Polygon T9 with 135 mils of rear travel climbs so much better than the enduro bike. And yet when you point it back downhill, as long as you have a trail bike with something like 150 millimeter suspension fork, you can pretty much keep up with an enduro bike on the way back downhill. Now, if I was gonna go ride like Whistler Bike Park or, you know, some sort of gnarly black diamond, like double black diamond downhill trails, would I need the enduro bike? Maybe, but for most average riders, the trail bike like this, a longer travel trail bike with 135, 150, is probably all you need. Do I even need to go do any more riding today? Like, I think we've already kind of reached the verdict right now with just that one test lap. Now, is there going to be a difference when we go to like that flow trail on the other side of the mountain? If anything, I think that's just going to make the trail bike shine even more because, you know, you're going to be able to whip it around the corners even easier and probably be even faster than a 170 mil enduro bike on the way downhill. So to be honest with you, which bike should you buy? A trail bike or an enduro bike? Well, I think it depends on the type of trails you ride. So if you're riding nothing but bike parks all day long or big gnarly double black diamond trails like they got up in BC in Canada, then maybe you should get an enduro bike. But I think for the majority of us, if you're talking about a trail bike, which trail bikes go, you know, anywhere from like 130 up to 150 millimeters of travel. But if you're talking about a trail bike with like 130-ish mils of rear travel and a 150 fork, that's what I recommend for the majority of average riders out there like you and like me. I think trail bike takes the win. I think trail bike is what you should spend your money on. And I don't think you need both. If anything, I would get the trail bike. That's gonna handle just about everything you do on your local trails. And then if you live like right by a mountain where they have a lift access bike park where it's really gnarly terrain, then maybe I would have a trail bike and a downhill bike. Or if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, get a trail bike. But if you also like to be able to go out and ride more XC style, like high speed, flatter roads, then have the trail bike and get an XC bike. But I don't think you need a trail bike and an enduro bike. The way they're making trail bikes these days, they're so capable. You can climb better than the enduro bike, and you can pretty much keep up with it downhill. But you know, that's just me. That's just my perspective. I'm not a professional rider, so I'm interested to hear, like, leave a comment down below. Like, what do you guys think? Trail bike or enduro bike? And if this video helped you at all and you've made it this far, subscribe to the damn channel already. Share this video with a friend. I know you guys got busy lives, so I'll let you get back to it, but leave a comment down below also if you guys wanted me to keep riding and do that second test lap and actually hit that other side of the mountain. Maybe I'll post that one on a future video. Thanks for watching, guys.